Director Kalen felt a knot form in his thorax as he read the notification on his console. An unscheduled inspection from the Galactic Conservation Agency. Tomorrow. The skin across his facial ridges rippled with anxious blue hues, a physiological response of his xylar biology that he couldn't suppress even after decades of diplomatic training. Particularly concerning was the name attached to the inspection order, Inspector Lorvis. Even among the notoriously rigid bureaucrats of the GCA, Lorvis had a reputation for inflexible adherence to protocol and thinly veiled disdain for what he termed primitive management methodologies. The specific focus of the inspection made Kalen's concerns even more acute: human containment protocols within the Apex Quadrant. The Intergalactic Conservation Reserve was Kalen's life's work. Spanning an entire moon, it housed the largest collection of endangered predatory species from across 17 galaxies. Under his 30-cycle tenure, the reserve had become the premier institution for the preservation and study of apex predators. Its crowning achievement and greatest challenge was the Apex Quadrant, home to the notorious shadow stalkers. These creatures defied conventional containment. Highly intelligent pack hunters with chameleonic abilities and sensory perception that could detect technology from kilometers away, the stalkers had frustrated every standard management approach. Remote drones were identified and destroyed. Automated systems regularly malfunctioned. Even the most advanced monitoring technology proved inadequate to track their movements, much less ensure their well-being or prevent security breaches. Until the humans. Kalen still remembered the day Maya Okafor, lead xenobiologist, had made her unusual proposal. After 7 failed containment protocols and costs spiraling into amounts that threatened the entire reserve's funding, she had suggested something unprecedented: allow a small team of human specialists to live within the enclosure itself. The idea had seemed absurd, dangerous, and likely illegal under at least 6 GCA regulations. Yet the data after 3 cycles spoke for itself. Incident rates had plummeted by 87%. The stalkers displayed more natural behaviors, improved health markers, and lower stress hormones. The human team, now officially called Wardens, reported fewer injuries than the remote operators had sustained trying to repair damaged equipment inside the enclosure. It worked. Against all conventional wisdom and regulatory frameworks, it worked brilliantly. And now Inspector Lorvis was coming to shut it all down. Kalen activated his sub-vocal communicator. "Maya, we have a situation." The inspection shuttle descended onto the main landing pad with clinical precision, the standard-issue GCA insignia gleaming against its sterile white exterior. Inspector Lorvis emerged first, his crystalline physiology catching the morning light and fracturing it into mathematical patterns across the landing pad. Even for a Cerealian, Lorvis was exceptionally angular, his crystalline form shaped into precise geometric planes that shifted with microscopic precision as he moved. Behind him followed a retinue of aides and security personnel of varied species, all wearing the same expressionless efficiency. Director Kalen, Lorvis acknowledged without extending any appendage in greeting. His voice resonated with perfect clarity, devoid of inflection. "I trust you received notification of our arrival." Kalen's skin flickered briefly to a diplomatic shade of emerald. "Inspector Lorvis, welcome to the reserve. We're honored by your presence, though I must admit the short notice was." A standard procedural element designed to prevent preparatory concealment, Lorvis interrupted. "The GCA has received concerning reports regarding your management of human assets within restricted predator containment zones. This represents a Category 3 violation of Sentient Safety Protocol 5291B. I require immediate access to all relevant documentation and a comprehensive explanation for this reckless endangerment." Kalen suppressed a ripple of irritation along his neck ridges. "Of course, Inspector. If you'll accompany me to the administration complex, I've prepared a complete briefing on our Warden program, including safety metrics, incident reports, and comparative data from previous management systems." Warden program, Lorvis repeated, the term emanating from him like a chemical formula being analyzed for toxicity. A euphemism for placing vulnerable sentients in proximity to Omega-class predators, it would seem. The administration complex's central briefing room featured a panoramic holographic display currently showing the sprawling expanse of the reserve from above. Kalen gestured toward a portion that encompassed nearly a quarter of the sanctuary's total area. The apex quadrant houses 17 classified Omega-level predatory species, including the shadow stalkers, our most challenging residents, Kalen explained, magnifying the display to show the dense, varied terrain. Prior to implementing the Warden program, we experienced an average of 3.7 critical containment failures per standard cycle, costing approximately 12.4 million credits in equipment damage alone, not counting the ecological impact of disrupted habitats. Lorvis's crystalline form remained motionless as he absorbed the information. Technological inadequacies do not justify biological endangerment. What alternative methodologies were attempted before resorting to placing humans within the enclosure? Kalen initiated a sequence showing various technologies and approaches. We implemented 7 distinct containment protocols over 15 cycles. Automated drone networks, quantum lock barriers, predictive movement algorithms, psionic dampening fields. Each failed catastrophically, with several resulting in stalker injuries and one causing the death of 2 specimens. One of Lorvis's aides, a serpentine methylene with specialized data processing appendages, interjected. Our records indicate these failures were due to implementation errors rather than inherent design flaws. A common assessment from those unfamiliar with shadow stalker behavior patterns, Kalen countered, trying to keep his tone respectful. The failures weren't technical, but conceptual. Stalkers possess a unique sensory apparatus that identifies and targets artificial systems with remarkable precision. Our most advanced cloaking technology was typically detected and neutralized within 26 hours. And humans somehow avoid this detection. Lorvis's tone conveyed skepticism despite its engineer neutrality. Not avoided, Kalen clarified. Integrated. The Wardens don't attempt to hide their presence. They establish territorial boundaries the stalkers recognize and respect through consistent behavioral cues. They maintain the monitoring equipment personally, which prevents the stalkers from perceiving it as an intrusion. Show me the data, Lorvis demanded. Kalen displayed a comprehensive matrix of comparative statistics, incident rates, health markers, behavioral diversity indexes for both the stalkers and the human wardens before and after implementation. As you can see, incidents of aggressive behavior toward equipment decreased by 93%. Stalker territorial displays, a sign of stress, decreased by 78%. Natural hunting behaviors increased by 64%. Human injuries decreased by 89% compared to technical teams entering for repairs. All vital health markers for both species show significant improvement. Lorvis's crystalline structure emitted a slight harmonic, the cerulean equivalent of a dismissive snort. Data can be manipulated, contexts reframed. I require direct observation. Of course, Kalen agreed, his skin tone shifting to a more neutral blue. The observation deck for the apex quadrant is this way. The observation deck extended from the edge of the administration zone, offering a panoramic view of a section of the apex quadrant's outer regions. Advanced optical enhancement allowed detailed observation without intrusive technology that might disturb the inhabitants. The security measures appear substantial, Lorvis noted, examining the multiple barrier systems currently in standby mode. Yet they are inactive? Active barriers provoke aggressive responses, Kalen explained. The Wardens maintain passive perimeter systems that alert them to boundary approaches without creating confrontation triggers. Through the enhanced viewing system, they could see a distant human figure moving along a ridge path, pausing periodically to adjust small devices embedded in the surrounding vegetation. The human wore no protective gear beyond standard weather equipment, carrying only a small pack and what appeared to be a simple staff. That's Maya, our lead warden, Kalen explained. She's checking the perimeter sensors and leaving scent markers. Scent markers? One of Lorvis's aides inquired. A combination of synthetic compounds that mimic territorial indicators from the stalker's evolutionary history. It's part of the communication system the Wardens have developed. As they watched, a shadowy distortion appeared on the path ahead of Maya. A stalker decloaking, its sleek, muscular form materializing like solidifying smoke. The creature stood nearly 2 meters at the shoulder, its 6 limbs arranged in a predatory stance, sensory appendages flaring from its elongated cranium. Lorvis's crystalline structure tensed perceptibly. The human is in immediate danger. Activate emergency protocols. No, Kalen said firmly. Watch. Maya had stopped, assuming a specific posture, body angled slightly away, head lowered but eyes visible, staff planted vertically beside her. She emitted a low, rhythmic vocalization that the observation deck systems amplified for them. The stalker's sensory appendages pulsed. It approached slowly, circling once around Maya while maintaining distance. Then it extended its primary sensory stalk toward the device she had just adjusted, examining it closely before retreating several meters and resuming a parallel path, continuing in the direction it had been heading originally. That was a territorial acknowledgement, Kalen explained. The stalker recognized Maya's right to maintain the perimeter equipment while retaining its patrol route. 3 cycles ago, that same interaction would have resulted in destroyed equipment and potentially an injured technician. This appears to be Stockholm Syndrome, Lorvis stated flatly. The human has adapted to captivity through psychological dependency on the predator. Kalen's skin flushed a brief, irritated red. Maya and her team returned to the central complex weekly for comprehensive psychological evaluation and mandatory rest periods. They aren't captives, they're specialists who have developed an unprecedented understanding of shadow stalker behavior. Understanding or not, this arrangement violates fundamental safety protocols, Lorvis countered. These humans are at constant risk. Which brings me to the most crucial aspect you need to understand, Kalen said, his tone growing more serious. The Wardens aren't merely tolerated by the stalkers. They're safer inside the enclosure than outside it, under specific circumstances. Lorvis's crystalline structure emitted a dissonant frequency. That is demonstrably absurd. I'd like to show you something else, Kalen said. With your permission, I've arranged for a secure feed from one of the Warden stations inside the quadrant. After a moment of silent calculation, Lorvis inclined his crystalline form slightly. Proceed, but this does not constitute approval. The main display shifted to show the interior of a modest but well-equipped structure. The walls were partially transparent, allowing visibility in all directions while maintaining climate control. A human woman with close-cropped silver hair was speaking directly to the camera. Inspector Lorvis, I'm Dr. Eleanor Chun, Xenobehavioral Specialist and Secondary Team Lead for the Warden Program. Director Kalen informed me of your concerns, and I'd like to address them directly. This facility appears inadequate for protection against Omega-class predators, Lorvis observed immediately. Dr. Chun nodded. By conventional standards, absolutely. However, our safety doesn't derive from physical barriers, but from behavioral integration. Over 3 cycles, we've established ourselves as neither prey nor threat within the stalker's territorial framework. Why would evolutionary predators make such a distinction? One of Lorvis's aides asked. Shadow stalkers evolve hunting behaviors optimized for prey, with specific movement patterns and energy signatures, Dr. Chen explained. We deliberately avoid triggering those patterns. More importantly, we've discovered something unexpected about their social structure. The view shifted to footage from external cameras. 3 stalkers could be seen in a loose formation around the perimeter of the Warden Station, not approaching but clearly patrolling. You see that? Dr. Chun continued. They're not hunting us. They're incorporating our presence into their defensive perimeter. This behavior emerged approximately 7 months into the program, coinciding with our first external security breach. Elaborate, Lorvis commanded. The reserve has experienced 6 attempted incursions by poachers targeting high-value species, Kalen explained. During these incidents, evacuation protocols for all personnel are standard procedure. However, in the Apex Quadrant, evacuations prove more dangerous than shelter-in-place protocols. Dr. Chen nodded. When external alarms activate, the stalkers become highly agitated, except around our stations. They appear to recognize the difference between us and unknown intruders, possibly due to our established scent profiles and behavioral patterns. They've actually intercepted poachers approaching our position on 3 separate occasions. You're claiming these apex predators protect you? Lorvis's tone was flat with disbelief. Not altruistically, Dr. Chen clarified. They're protecting their established territory, which happens to include our stations as neutral zones. We've essentially been incorporated into their complex social ecology, not as pack members, but as recognized non-prey entities within their territory. This arrangement is still fundamentally unacceptable under GCA regulations, Lorvis stated. You cannot justify risking sentient lives based on behavioral theories and provisional data. It wasn't our choice initially, Kalen interjected. The humans requested this arrangement after the 3rd security breach, when evacuation protocols resulted in 2 warden injuries during extraction. They presented compelling evidence that they were statistically safer remaining in place. Sentients cannot consent to clear regulatory violations, Lorvis countered. Yet you'd override their expertise and agency? Dr. Chun asked from the screen. We're not ignorant of the risks, Inspector. We've made an informed professional assessment based on data and direct experience that you lack. Enough, Lorvis said sharply. I've seen sufficient evidence to conclude that this arrangement violates 7 distinct safety protocols. I will be submitting a report recommending immediate cessation of the Warden program, removal of all human personnel from the Apex Quadrant, and implementation of standard containment protocols regardless of previous failure rates. Kalen's skin darkened with concern. Inspector, please consider the implications. The stalkers have adapted to the Warden's presence. Sudden removal could trigger unpredictable behavioral responses, potentially endangering the very specimens we're trying to protect. That is speculation, Lorvis dismissed. GCA containment specialists will manage the transition according to established protocols. Before Kalen could respond, a piercing alarm cut through the conversation. Red emergency indicators activated across all displays. Perimeter breach detected in sectors 17 through 19, the automated system announced. Unauthorized entry. Security Protocol Alpha 7 initiated. Lorvis's aides immediately clustered around him protectively. What is happening? He demanded. Kalen moved quickly to the central console, his skin pulsing with urgent patterns. Poachers, a sophisticated group. They've bypassed the outer sensor grid and penetrated nearly 2 kilometers into the reserve. He looked up, his expression grim. They're heading directly for the Apex Quadrant. Evacuate the humans immediately, Lorvis ordered. No, Kalen said firmly. Watch. On the main display, Dr. Chun was already in motion, activating a series of controls within the station. We've got multiple intruders approaching the eastern perimeter, she reported calmly. Maya's team is closer. They're implementing Protocol Umbra. The display split to show Maya and 2 other wardens rapidly deploying what appeared to be simple mechanical devices at various points around their station. Each device emitted a low-frequency pulse that was visualized on the display as expanding ripples. What are they doing? One of Lorvis's aides asked. Territorial reinforcement, Kalen explained. Those acoustic emitters replicate and amplify specific stalker communication frequencies. They're essentially broadcasting a territorial challenge to any unrecognized entities. On another section of the display, they could see thermal imagery of the poachers, at least 8 figures moving in tactical formation, armed with specialized capture equipment. They're after juvenile stalkers, Kalen observed grimly. The black market value would be astronomical. Your security forces should intercept them, Lorvis stated. They're already mobilizing, but but the poachers have a significant head start and are using advanced cloaking technology, Kalen replied. It will take time to pinpoint their exact location and deploy appropriately. Another alarm sounded. The thermal imagery showed the poachers had suddenly stopped advancing. Around them, multiple larger heat signatures were appearing, seemingly materializing from the surrounding terrain. Stalkers, Kalen identified. At least 12 of them, forming a containment pattern. The poachers' formation tightened defensively as they detected the predators surrounding them. They began firing specialized restraint weapons, but the stalkers moved with extraordinary coordination, maintaining distance while keeping the intruders contained. "This is unprecedented," one of Lorvis's scientific aides remarked. "This level of coordinated behavior suggests advanced pack tactics beyond previous documentation." "Look at this." Kalen directed their attention to another feed showing Maya at what appeared to be a simple mechanical device resembling an ancient signal mirror. She was adjusting it in precise movements, sending patterns of reflected light towards specific points in the forest. "She's directing them," Kalen explained. "Not controlling, guiding." The reflections mimic the stalker's own visual communication system, reinforcing their natural containment instincts. For several tense minutes, they watched as the standoff continued. The reserve security forces were closing in, but still several minutes away. The poachers attempted to break through the stalker perimeter twice, only to be driven back each time by precisely coordinated movements from the predators. "The humans should be evacuated immediately," Lorvis insisted again. "This situation proves my point about unacceptable risk levels." "On the contrary," Kalen countered, "the warden stations are currently the safest locations in the quadrant. The stalkers are actively defending that territory against intruders." As if to illustrate his point, one of the poachers broke away from the main group, attempting to flee toward Maya's position. 3 stalkers immediately intercepted, herding the poacher back toward their companions with frightening precision. "They're protecting the warden station," one of Lorvis's aides observed quietly. "No," Kalen corrected. "They're protecting their territory, which includes the station as a recognized element. It's a crucial distinction." The security feeds showed the reserve's enforcement team finally arriving, surrounding the contained poachers. The stalkers, their immediate territorial defense complete, began to fade back into the surrounding environment, their heat signatures dispersing into the forest. "Situation contained," the security chief reported through the comm system. "All intruders accounted for, no casualties. Extraction proceeding." A heavy silence fell over the observation deck. Lorvis's crystalline structure had gone completely still, light refracting through him in complex, calculating patterns. "Would you like to speak with the wardens now that the immediate situation has been resolved?" Kalen offered. After a long moment, Lorvis inclined his form slightly. "Yes, a direct interview would be informative." An hour later, they sat in a secure conference room within the administration complex. Maya Okafor had joined them in person, still wearing her field gear, while Dr. Chun and 2 other wardens participated via secure holographic link from their station. "I understand your concerns, Inspector," Maya said, her calm demeanor belying the intensity of the recent events. 3 cycles ago, I would have shared them. The idea of living within the stalker's territory seemed suicidal when I first proposed it. Yet you did propose it, Lorvis noted. Explain your reasoning. Necessity, Maya replied simply. Every technological solution had failed catastrophically. The stalkers were showing increasing signs of stress and abnormal behavior. We were failing our conservation mandate. We began with temporary observation blinds, Dr. Chen added. Brief periods of immersive study. What we discovered challenged everything in the existing literature about stalker behavior. Maya nodded. They weren't just destroying our equipment randomly. They were responding to specific frequencies and energy signatures that mimic threats from their evolutionary history. Once we identified those triggers, we could begin adapting our presence to avoid them. The breakthrough came when we realized they weren't treating us the same as the equipment. Another warden, a tall man introduced as Specialist Tomas Rivera, explained. They investigated us, certainly, but with different behavioral markers than they use for technological threats. We essentially presented ourselves as a neutral biological entity sharing their space, Maya continued. We maintained consistent movement patterns, respected territorial boundaries, and gradually introduced communication methods based on their own sensory systems. And the protection behavior we observe today, Lorvis inquired, emerged naturally after the first poacher incursion, Dr. Chen said. The stalkers responded to the intruders as threats, which reinforced our non-threatening status by contrast. Over time, they began incorporating our stations into their territorial patrol patterns. When external threats appear, Maya explained, we use acoustic and visual signals to reinforce natural territorial responses. We're not controlling them. We're working within their existing behavioral framework. Lorvis's crystalline structure emitted a low harmonic. This arrangement remains in violation of multiple GCA safety protocols. With respect, Inspector, Maya said firmly, those protocols were developed for standard containment situations. The apex quadrant is unprecedented. We've developed new methodologies because conventional approaches failed repeatedly, at great cost to both the conservation program and the specimens themselves. The data supports their position. One of Lorvis's scientific aides ventured cautiously. The incident reduction statistics are significant beyond standard margins of error. Regulations exist for reasons beyond statistical outcomes, Lorvis countered. They establish consistent standards across diverse situations. At what cost? Kalen asked quietly. Before the Warden program, we lost 2 stalkers to stress-induced self-harm. Equipment failures exposed staff to greater dangers during emergency repairs than the Wardens face in their daily routine. The reserve nearly lost its funding due to the astronomical costs of replacing destroyed technology. And most importantly, Maya added, the stalkers are thriving now. Natural behaviors have returned. Reproduction rates have normalized. We're fulfilling our actual mandate, conservation, more effectively than ever before. Lorvis remained silent for a long moment, internal calculations almost visible through his crystalline form. Finally, he spoke. I cannot officially endorse this arrangement. It contravenes fundamental GCA protocols regarding sentient safety and predator containment. Kalen's skin darkened with disappointment. However, Lorvis continued. Today's security incident revealed significant vulnerabilities in the reserve's external defense systems that require immediate attention. My primary report will focus on these deficiencies and recommend comprehensive upgrades to prevent unauthorized access. The inspector's tone remained perfectly neutral as he continued. Additionally, I will note that current containment parameters demonstrated unexpected resilience during the security breach. I recommend extended research initiative to study human stalker interaction patterns under controlled conditions, rather than immediate termination of the program. Kalen's skin rippled with surprised blue-green patterns. That would allow the Warden program to continue while the study proceeds. For a probationary period, Lorvis qualified, with enhanced monitoring and quarterly reviews. This is not approval, Director Kalen. It is scientific diligence. We understand, Inspector, Maya said, her expression carefully neutral despite the obvious relief in her voice. We welcome the additional scrutiny. Our methods should withstand rigorous examination. Indeed they should, Lorvis replied. My aides will provide detailed parameters for the monitoring protocols before our departure tomorrow. As the meeting concluded and the Wardens disconnected, Lorvis lingered in the conference room with Kalen. You understand that many of my colleagues will question this decision, the inspector said quietly. I do, Kalen acknowledged. It can't have been an easy one to make. It was not, Lorvis admitted. Our regulations are not designed to accommodate adaptations of this nature. Yet I cannot dismiss the evidence before me, particularly during today's incident. The universe rarely conforms neatly to our attempts to regulate it, Kalen observed. An uncomfortable truth, Lorvis agreed, his crystalline structure shifting slightly. Nevertheless, Director, understand that this arrangement remains provisional. Should any significant incident occur, we'll be shut down immediately, Kalen finished. I understand. After Lorvis and his team departed the following day, Kalen stood at the observation deck, watching Maya moving along her usual path through the edge of the Stalker territory. His communicator chimed softly. They're gone, Maya asked without preamble. Yes, with a list of additional monitoring requirements longer than a Jeruvian tentacle, Kalen replied. But we have our reprieve. Not exactly a ringing endorsement, Maya noted. From Lorvis? It's practically a love letter, Kalen said, his skin rippling with amused yellow patterns. He's risking considerable professional scrutiny by allowing the program to continue. The poachers had unexpectedly good timing, Maya observed. Don't even joke about that, Kalen said, suddenly serious. The security breach was far too close for comfort, if the stalkers hadn't responded as they did. But they did, Maya said firmly. That's the point, Kalen. This works because it's real, not because we're controlling anything, but because we found a way to exist within their system rather than imposing ours upon them. Through the observation system, Kalen could see a stalker materializing on the path ahead of Maya, just as one had during Lorvis's inspection. The same ritual played out, the careful posturing, the circling, the mutual acknowledgement of boundaries. How long do you think this balancing act can continue? Kalen asked quietly. I don't know, Maya admitted. But I do know that every day we maintain, it is another day these remarkable creatures survive. Another day we learn something new. Another day the old ways of thinking get challenged. The stalker had moved on, continuing its patrol route parallel to Maya's path. In the distance, Kalen could see two more shadowy forms moving through the underbrush. Not approaching, but present, aware, part of the complex social ecology that now included these strange, two-legged creatures who had learned to speak, however imperfectly, in the language of predators. Sometimes the safest place to be, Maya said thoughtfully, is right in the middle of the danger you understand, rather than protected from the dangers you don't. Kalen watched as Maya continued her rounds, staff in hand, moving with the confident precision of someone who knew exactly where she belonged in the alien landscape around her. The reserve continued its operation, its strange, dangerous, unlikely balance maintained for another day. At least for now.